Hello everyone, I wish you all a wonderful and peaceful day. Today we're diving into a deeply emotional story about Ly Tu Tieu, a gentle countryside girl who receives mysterious photos of the man she loves, CEO Quân, walking closely with another woman by the lake, even though he told her he was busy with work. Will she answer his call, or will doubt shatter her trust? If you enjoy heartfelt, emotional stories, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next videos. Let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I really hope you're having a peaceful and wonderful day today. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by and joining us. Today we're diving deep into a heartfelt, emotional story that many of you have been requesting. The touching story of Ly Tu Tieu, a gentle countryside girl whose quiet and simple world suddenly gets shaken when she receives mysterious photos of the man she loves. Let me paint the picture for you right from the beginning. Imagine waking up to the soft morning sunlight gently filtering through the old wooden door frame of a small, humble house nestled deep in the peaceful Vietnamese countryside. Those golden rays dance softly across the simple dirt yard, bringing a warm and comforting glow to everything they touch. That's exactly where we find Ly Tu Tieu this morning. She's standing there quietly, sweeping the ground with slow, rhythmic strokes of her bamboo broom. The soft brushing sound against the earth feels so familiar and soothing, like a gentle melody she has known her whole life. Her little dog, Milu, is full of energy, running joyful circles around her feet, barking playfully with his tail wagging excitedly. It's as if he can sense her quiet emotions and wants nothing more than to make his beloved owner smile. Ly Tu Tieu pauses for a moment, resting both hands on the broom handle and lifting her gaze toward the endless green rice fields that stretch far into the horizon. The morning breeze carries the fresh scent of earth and dew, gently rustling through the leaves and creating a sense of calm that wraps around her like a soft blanket. In her heart, there is this quiet, tender longing that never seems to fade away. She is thinking about CEO Quân, the successful, accomplished man who has completely captured her heart. Even though their worlds are so different, him managing big responsibilities and high-pressure situations in the bustling city while she lives this simple, grounded life in the village. Ly Tu Tieu tries her best not to let worry take over her mind. She whispers softly to herself that Quân must be really busy with work at the company right now. She knows how demanding his position as CEO truly is, with endless meetings, important contracts, and crucial decisions that need to be made every single day. She never wants to be the kind of person who adds extra pressure to his already heavy schedule. Instead, she chooses to be patient, understanding, and supportive from afar in her own quiet way. She continues with her morning chores with so much care and love, pouring fresh food into Milu's bowl and watching him eat happily, then kneeling down to gently stroke his soft, fluffy fur. These small, everyday actions help her hold on to hope and keep her heart warm even when she misses him. The countryside around her feels incredibly calm and comforting, filled with the cheerful sounds of birds singing and leaves whispering in the wind. Everything seems peaceful and ordinary, just like any other day in her simple life. But even as she goes about her routines, her mind keeps wandering back to Quân. She remembers the way his voice sounded during their last phone call. Deep, warm, and reassuring. He always makes time to check on her, no matter how busy his schedule gets. Those little moments of care mean the entire world to a simple countryside girl like Ly Tu Tieu. She doesn't dream of grand romantic gestures or luxurious dates in the city. She is content with his caring words, with knowing that somewhere far away in the busy city, he is thinking about her too. Or at least that's what she chooses to believe with all her gentle heart. Now let's shift scenes to the city. Far away in the busy city center, inside a quiet and elegant cafe with soft lighting and gentle background music playing, CEO Quân walks in with his usual calm and composed presence. He is dressed neatly in a crisp white shirt that highlights his tall, confident figure. He came to this place following his father's request for what was supposed to be an important family meeting. However, his thoughts are not fully here. Deep in his mind, he keeps seeing images of Tieu Lac, the gentle countryside girl whose simple smile and kind heart always bring him a rare sense of true peace amid his chaotic and demanding professional life. When the girl his family had carefully arranged for him to meet finally arrives, her name is Trine. Quân greets her with a polite and courteous smile. He thoughtfully pulls out a chair for her to sit down and orders 2 matcha lattes, a small but refined gesture of hospitality. They begin talking lightly about everyday topics. She shares stories about her studies abroad, her experiences living in a foreign country, and her thoughts about possibly returning home to Vietnam. Quân listens attentively, nodding from time to time and responding with appropriate, measured replies. He maintains perfect politeness, just as expected from someone raised with strong traditional family values. However, no matter how hard he tries to stay focused on the conversation happening right in front of him, his heart keeps drifting back to Tieu Lac. He thinks about her peaceful life in the village, about Milou running around her feet with joy, about the simple meals she prepares with love, and the quiet evenings she spends under the stars. Those warm thoughts bring him a sense of comfort, even during the slightly awkward arranged meeting set up by their families. During the same time, back in the countryside, Tieu Lac decides to call Quân to check on him. He answers right away. His voice comes through warm and reassuring as always. He tells her that he is busy with important contracts and several meetings at the company today. He gently reassures her not to worry about him, saying that once he finishes handling everything, he will make time to visit her as soon as possible. His tone is sincere and filled with care. He chooses not to mention anything about the family-arranged meeting, not wanting to cause her any unnecessary worry or concern. On the other end of the line, Tieu Lac smiles softly to herself, her heart feeling a little lighter. She trusts him completely and chooses not to overthink the situation. She replies gently that she understands, asks him to take good care of his health, and then hangs up the phone. Back at the cafe, both fathers end up being unable to join due to sudden urgent matters that came up. The atmosphere becomes even quieter and more peaceful. Quân looks out through the large windows and notices how hot and bright the sun is shining outside. In his responsible and polite manner, he makes a gentle suggestion to Trine that they take a short walk by the nearby lake to cool off from the heat. She smiles and agrees. They leave the cafe and walk slowly together along the scenic lakeside path. A cool, refreshing breeze blows across the sparkling water surface, offering a pleasant relief from the afternoon heat. Quân asks her a few polite questions about her life and interests, always keeping a respectful emotional distance. Then, an unexpected little moment happens. Trine suddenly slips on a stone path that had become wet and slippery from water splashing up from the lake. She loses her balance and stumbles forward. Without any hesitation, CEO Quân quickly reaches out his hand and catches her, steadying her gently with his hand placed lightly on her shoulder. He tells her to be careful in a soft, concerned voice. It was nothing more than a natural, chivalrous reflex, a simple act of helping someone who needed it in that moment. But from a hidden spot in the distance, someone had been secretly watching the entire scene and captured clear photos with their phone. The images show Quân supporting Trine, their bodies appearing quite close together under the soft, romantic afternoon sunlight filtering through the trees. Quân has absolutely no idea that these photos were taken. After the short walk, he politely asks his loyal assistant Nam to open the car door and drive Trine home safely. He explains that he needs to go on a business trip for a few days. In his heart, he feels a quiet sense of relief, already looking forward to finishing his work and making time to visit Tieu Lac back in the peaceful countryside. That evening, as the sun began to set in beautiful hues of orange and pink, painting the sky over the vast green rice fields, Tieu Lac sat quietly under the warm yellow glow of the old porch light, outside her small countryside house. Milu, her loyal little dog, was curled up comfortably right beside her, his small, warm body pressed gently against her leg. She slowly stroked his soft fur with gentle, loving movements of her hand, her thoughts drifting fondly toward Quan. She whispered softly to herself that he must be feeling really tired after handling so much work at the company throughout the day. She wondered if he had managed to eat a proper dinner yet, whether he was getting enough rest amidst his busy schedule, and hoped deeply that he wasn't pushing himself too hard or neglecting his own health. Even though she knew that both families sometimes tried to arrange meetings for him as part of their traditional ways, she held on to her quiet hope and trust. Quan's caring and reassuring words from their earlier phone call still lingered warmly in her heart, wrapping around her like a gentle, comforting embrace. But then her phone suddenly vibrated with an incoming message from an unknown number. Feeling a bit curious, Tu Lak picked it up and opened the message. In that single moment, her heart dropped heavily inside her chest. The message contained several clear, high-quality photos showing CEO Quan at the lakeside with another woman named Trin. In the images, his hand was resting gently on her shoulder as he helped steady her after she had slipped. They appeared so close together under the soft golden afternoon sunlight filtering through the trees. Tu Lak stared at the screen in complete disbelief, her fingers beginning to tremble slightly as she held the phone. The gentle, hopeful smile that had been on her face earlier slowly faded away completely. Milu sensed that something was wrong and nuzzled even closer to her leg, pressing his little body against her, as if trying to offer comfort in the only way he knew how. Her mind immediately started spinning with so many painful and confusing questions. Why was he walking closely with another woman by the lake when he had clearly told her on the phone that he was busy with important work and meetings at the company? Why did his hand rest so naturally on her shoulder in that way? The photos looked incredibly real and intimate, capturing a moment that made her heart ache. Tears began to well up in her eyes and rolled silently down her cheeks one by one. She pulled Milu into a tight hug, her gentle and kind heart now torn between the deep love she felt for Quan and the growing seeds of doubt that were starting to take root. The simple countryside girl who had always tried her best not to overthink things or create unnecessary worries suddenly found herself overwhelmed by a wave of emotions that she couldn't quite control or push away. The warm yellow porch light continued to cast its soft, comforting glow over the small wooden house as Tu Lak sat completely still on the edge of the old bench. Her eyes remained fixed on the photos that were still open on her phone screen. Every tiny detail in those images felt permanently burned into her memory. The way Quan's strong hand had rested gently on the girl's shoulder to steady her. How their bodies had leaned in close together for that brief moment, and how the beautiful afternoon sunlight had made the entire scene look far more romantic and intimate than her fragile heart could bear to see. Every time she zoomed in for a closer look, the sharp pain in her chest grew heavier and more difficult to endure. She kept whispering to herself again and again that Quan had told her he was busy handling important contracts and long meetings at the company. She reminded herself over and over how demanding his life as a successful CEO truly was. The endless stream of responsibilities, the high pressure from both work and family expectations, and the constant need to make big decisions that affected many people. She had always tried so hard to be the understanding and patient partner, never wanting to add any extra burden to his already heavy load. But these unexpected and mysterious photos had completely shaken her entire world in just a matter of seconds. They made her start questioning things she had never once doubted before. Who exactly was that elegant woman in the pictures? Was it truly just a simple, polite, and chivalrous act of helping someone who had slipped? Or was there something deeper happening that Quan had chosen not to mention to her during their call? In one moment, she tried her hardest to convince herself to trust him fully, remembering all the caring words, the thoughtful gestures, and the sincere, warm tone he had shown her so many times before. In the next moment, those painfully clear images would flash through her mind once again, sending fresh waves of hurt, confusion, and doubt crashing over her like cold water. She stood up slowly from the bench, carefully cradling Milu in her arms as she walked back inside the modest wooden house. The familiar, comforting sense of old timber, dried herbs, and the faint aroma of her simple evening meal usually wrapped around her like a warm, protective blanket. Tonight, however, everything inside felt strangely distant, empty, and unusually cold. Tu Lac placed her phone gently down on the old wooden table and tried desperately to distract herself by doing everyday household chores. She washed the dishes from her simple dinner, the sound of running water echoing loudly in the otherwise silent room. She wiped down the table and surfaces even though they were already spotlessly clean. She folded clothes that didn't really need folding and even stepped outside again briefly under the moonlight to water the small vegetable garden beside the house. She moved slowly and mechanically through each task, using these familiar daily routines that she had performed thousands of times before as a way to hold herself together and prevent her emotions from completely breaking down into tears. Milu followed her faithfully from room to room, his little paws making soft padding sounds on the wooden floor. He stayed as close to her as possible, occasionally nudging her leg gently with his cold nose, offering the only kind of silent comfort and support he knew how to give. After what felt like a very long time, Tu Lac finally sat down on the edge of her simple bed, pulling Milu into her lap and hugging him tightly against her chest. Fresh tears began rolling down her cheeks again, as all the emotions she had been trying so hard to hold back finally overflowed. She murmured softly to Milu, asking him if Quan was really thinking about her, if he was truly only busy with work at the company like he had said, and if everything between them was still okay. She remembered so many beautiful and tender moments they had shared together over time. The late-night phone calls where he would always ask if she had eaten properly, if she was feeling tired after working in the garden all day, or if Milu had been behaving well and making her laugh. She recalled the way he always listened so patiently when she talked about her simple, peaceful life in the village, tending to the rice fields and finding joy in the smallest ordinary things. Those precious memories had once brought her so much warmth and happiness. Now they felt bittersweet, mixing sweet nostalgia with a sharp, stinging pain that was becoming harder and harder to endure. Then the phone suddenly rang, shattering the heavy silence that had settled over the small house. The screen lit up brightly with Quan's name. Tu Lac's heart leaped violently in her chest. For what felt like an eternity, she simply stared at the glowing screen, her finger hovering hesitantly over the answer button as thousands of conflicting thoughts raced through her mind. Part of her desperately wanted to pick up the call right away so she could hear his familiar, deep, warm voice calmly explaining everything and telling her it was all just a misunderstanding. But another, much stronger part of her, the part that was deeply hurt, scared, confused, and vulnerable, held her back completely. She let the phone continue ringing until it finally stopped on its own. The sudden silence that followed felt even heavier and more suffocating than before. Milu looked up at her with his big, concerned eyes. Tu Lac buried her face deeply into his soft fur once more, her shoulders shaking with quiet, heartbroken sobs. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. Quan was calling back persistently. Once more, she stared at the glowing screen through tear-filled eyes, her mind spinning wildly. Love fought desperately against fear inside her. Trust battled hard against painful suspicion. She loved him more than she could ever express in words. She had always supported his demanding CEO lifestyle without a single complaint, never asking too many questions, and simply waiting patiently with all her gentle heart. But tonight, that belief was cracking badly under the heavy weight of those undeniable photos. She didn't answer the second call either. Instead, she turned the phone completely face down on the table and curled up on the bed, holding Milu tightly against her chest as if he was the only anchor she had left. The quiet countryside outside her window remained beautifully peaceful as always, with crickets singing their nightly song and a gentle breeze rustling softly through the rice fields and trees. But inside the small house, Tieu Lac's heart was in complete emotional turmoil. She kept going back and forth in her thoughts for hours on end, believing in Quan's love in his busy life one moment, then feeling completely crushed by doubt, sadness, and uncertainty the next. The internal conflict inside her gentle soul grew deeper, more painful, and more exhausting with every passing minute of that long, sleepless night. She wondered if his family's repeated matchmaking efforts had finally succeeded in pulling him away from her. She wondered if he was growing tired of their long-distance relationship. She wondered whether everything he had ever said to her was just kind, polite words meant to keep her from worrying while he lived his more complicated life in the city. The kind-hearted countryside girl who had never wanted to overthink things now found herself completely unable to escape the heavy storm of emotions raging silently but fiercely within her. The long night stretched on endlessly, leaving Tieu Lac alone with her unanswered questions, her deep and sincere love for Quan, and the heavy doubt that now filled every corner of her aching, conflicted heart. In this heartfelt story, Tieu Lac, a gentle countryside girl, spends her peaceful days thinking about the man she loves, busy CEO Quan. When he tells her he's overwhelmed with important work at the company, she trusts him completely. However, everything changes when she receives mysterious photos showing him with Trine by the lake. Despite Quan calling her later that night to check on her, Tieu Lac remains torn between her deep love and growing suspicion. Will she eventually answer the call and seek the truth, or will this misunderstanding push them further apart? This is a touching story of love, trust, patience, silent emotional struggles, and the quiet strength of a simple countryside heart. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, please let me know in the comments section below. What do you think Tieu Lac should do next? Should she trust Quan completely or find the courage to confront him about the photos? Hit the like button if this story touched your heart. Subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this one, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next part. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Take care of yourselves, stay gentle, and I'll see you again in the next video. In this heartfelt story, Tieu Lac, a gentle countryside girl, spends her peaceful days thinking about the man she loves, busy CEO Quan. When he calls and tells her he's overwhelmed with important work at the company, she trusts him completely and doesn't overthink it. However, everything changes when Tieu Lac receives mysterious photos showing Quan walking closely with another woman by the lake. In the images, he is tenderly helping the girl after she slips and falls. Shocked and heartbroken, Tieu Lac's trust begins to crumble as doubt and pain flood her heart. Despite Quan calling her later that night to check on her, Tieu Lac stares at her ringing phone, torn between her deep love and growing suspicion. Will she answer and seek the truth, or will the misunderstanding push them further apart? A touching story of love, trust, and silent emotional struggle.